Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. A fire that broke out in the Clark Street building, which housed a number of business establishments, including Wet and Cold Express, on Thursday around 1:15 p.m., was subdued by fire officers. Officials from the Fire Service Department say the quick response to the fire was in part due to the occurrence of a training session which was being conducted in close proximity to the site. Solange Alfred tells us more.
The smoke-filled air tells the story of a building up in flames on Thursday, 8th August in Viewfort on Clark Street. A structure which housed many business establishments, including Wet and Cold Express, on the ground floor, was engulfed by fire around 1:15 p.m. on the day in question. Assistant Divisional Officer of the St. Lucia Fire Service Department, David Antoine, says, though the department's response to the emergency call was swift, the department encountered an issue in quickly subduing the blaze.
That building measured approximately 51 by 56 feet in dimension. On arrival at the scene, fire officers were able to eventually control and extinguish the fire. As a consequence of that effort, the structure was extensively damaged. The major factor that hampered our effort in bringing that fire to a control as soon as we got on the scene was the fact that the structure remained energized for about 30 to 45 minutes. And to safeguard our men, we had to have allowed them to stand by and do the very little that they could have done from a distance, while Lucille climbed the pole and detach the electricity wires going to that building.
The brave men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service Department were recognized and thanked in a press release sent out by Wet and Cold Express, which reads, quote, Michelle Kalu, CEO, expressed the company's immense relief and gratitude that there was no loss of life or serious injury to PCD personnel, neighboring tenants, firefighters, and members of the public. She thanked everyone who acted swiftly and decisively to raise an alarm, to evacuate the store, and to contact the fire services and other relevant authorities. The CEO, management, and staff of Peter and Company Distribution, PCD, also offered their deepest gratitude to the fire services for their overwhelming response and diligent work in extinguishing the fire. End quote. Antoine says the swift efforts of the firefighters came about from being at the right place at the right time.
Fortunately, we were having a training exercise at the fire service training school in the south when that fire started. So we left and we responded, and as a result, we had a large number of men on the ground assisting in the effort to control and extinguish that fire. And we did all we could with the manpower we have and the resources. And I think we had adequate to have done the job as we performed. But as I said, the only difficulty was the building being energized.
The cause of the fire is still not yet known and is currently being investigated by the St. Lucia Fire Service Department. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solange Alfred.
Be prepared. We hear it all the time, even more so when the hurricane season comes around. The Water and Sewage Company, Inc. WASCO, says water storage should be an integral part of everyone's preparedness plan in case of an emergency. Going a step further, the Communication and Marketing Officer at WASCO, Sherry Ann Gillard-Williams, says the vessels used for water storage are as equally important as storing the water itself.
When disaster strikes, the vital resources we depend on become hot commodities which everyone reaches for. Many stakeholders in the disaster management scheme have emphasized the importance of preparedness and outlined the key items needed for a well-stocked preparedness kit. Communication and Marketing Officer at WASCO, Sherry Ann Williams, says too often the storage of water gets forgotten in the grand scheme of preparedness initiatives.
You find especially that during the hurricane season, people go to the supermarkets, for example, to stock up on candles, to stock up on batteries and flashlights and so on. People carry their mobile charger banks to ensure that they do not suffer any sort of inconvenience when there is a power outage. So in the same measure, we are trying to, advise people to do the same when it comes to water storage so that the interruptions or the inconvenience that they suffer as a result of the interruptions would be decreased.
Williams says when it comes to water storage, it's not as simple as reaching for the first vessel available. She explains.
We do advise people to store water. However, that water that is stored and is meant for consumption should be stored properly. And when we say properly, in sealed containers or in containers with small lids, so that you can prevent contamination. The containers that the water is stored in also have to be food grade containers, because you don't want to be storing water in a container that can rust, or in a container, a plastic container, for example, that is not food grade. So, because of course you can contaminate your water based on what can leak into your water. So we do want to implore people to get food grade containers to store their water, and to make sure that the water is covered properly and stored in a cool, dry place.
The best type of plastic for use in long-term food storage is high-density polyethylene, HDPE, which is indicated by the number 2 symbol. HDPE is one of the most stable and inert forms of plastic, and all plastic buckets sold specifically for food storage will be made from this material. Other types of plastic acceptable for food storage include PETE, LDPE, and polypropylene, PP. These plastics are represented by the numbers 1, 4, and 5 respectively. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solange Alfred.
Thanks to investments under the DVRP, the St. Lucia Met Services and the Water Resources Management Agency will soon be able to produce real-time flash flood and mudslide warnings to at-risk communities across the island. Such information will redound to a significant reduction in damage to property and will save lives. When implemented, the flash flood guidance system will enable local hydrometeorologists to better predict flash floods for even small streams and creeks on the island based on the latest actual rainfall estimates as well as rainfall predictions from numerical weather models. The landslide threat for highly vulnerable locations will also be assessed through the system based on the latest rainfall and soil saturation estimates. Important information will be available for posting to the websites of both the St. Lucia Met Services and Water Resources Management for user distribution and access. St. Lucia is being called upon to increase its exploits in the French market. The executive director of the Bay Gardens Hotel, Sanovnik Destang, says the island has only scratched the surface when it comes to the realm of possibilities for expanding tourism markets.
I find that if we've done very well in St. Lucia with mainland France without really spending a lot on marketing and really stimulating that market as much as we could. You know, we have spoken a bit about Germany, and I know that historically Germany has been an important market, but the fact of the matter is that France is you know, providing 4 times as many arrivals, 3 to 4 times as many arrivals without a direct flight and without any major investment. There's a lot of things that people aren't aware of, such as the fact that French nationals don't even need a passport to come to St. Lucia because of our agreement between Martinique, France and St. Lucia. And of course, going the other way, St. Lucians no longer even need a Schengen visa to be able to get into the Schengen states, which includes France.
Destang says so far the arrival figures do not even begin to capture the full impact of this key source market for the island. The CEO of shipping agent Cox & Company, Matthew Bobre, says although the rise in tourist arrivals is a major benefit of recent developments in the cruise ship industry, it raises new concerns, such as the ability of sites, attractions, and present technology to adapt and facilitate larger groups of visitors.
The ships are getting bigger and bigger. They're moving from 2,500 to 3,006, and now you're getting 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 passenger ships coming out. And for us as a destination, we really need to manage the capacity. If you have too much persons coming in on a particular day, then you get the sites get very overcrowded. So for us, we really need to manage, when the ships come in, and better utilization of equipment.
Bobra says the increase in arrivals is important to St. Lucia's success as a destination. However, this must be accompanied with greater resource management at tourist attractions.
You know, it's important for us as a destination to make sure that we increase the numbers, but we increase it in such a way where we don't cause overcapacity within the island. So it's something that we need to look at. It's not bad in St. Lucia, but it's something down the road that we need to look at and see how we really expand the market and how we manage the capacity issue in the long term.
He believes that the overall experience of guests is greatly affected by overcrowding, making sites less enjoyable for visitors.
What you don't want is crowding at the sites. So somebody goes to the Sulphur Springs and you have hundreds and hundreds of people going through the mud baths, then the experience is not going to be the same. So it's important that as a destination we really make sure that we can manage the scheduling well.
The CEO underscores the importance of bathrooms, seating, and required materials to partake in on-site activities at the various attractions.
It's difficult because a lot of these cruise ships are on particular itineraries, and that means that they can only arrive in St. Lucia on a particular day. But it's something we need to deal with in the long term because the ships are getting bigger. They're building a lot of new ships. They're looking for ports to go to. St. Lucia is a good destination, a good experience. So there are great opportunities, but out of that, you still have to manage the process and manage the capacity issue very well.
Bobra acknowledges that this is no easy task, but says it is necessary to ensure the continued growth of the tourism industry. Village tourism is a term used by Minister for Tourism Dominic Fede, urging more local operators to get into the advancements of the tourism sector. The minister says as the culture of Airbnb and home and away stays increase, St. Lucia should look to advance the varying accommodations offered to visitors. Solange Alfred reports.
Village tourism, outlined by Minister for Tourism Dominic Fede, is a means to improve the economic stability of the island as it relates to providing a different avenue of accommodations for the new age traveler.
Village tourism, a project that this government has championed, and it's a project that we are looking to with a view to empowering more St. Lucians to get involved in tourism from a business point of view. We've seen what has happened already with Airbnb. We have close to 1,000 registered Airbnb dwellings in St. Lucia. And those Airbnb dwellings are owned by locals, St. Lucians, apartments, in residential and touristic communities. Even hotels are on the Airbnb and HomeAway and VRBO and all these platforms. Expedia has got into that game as well. And what this has done, it has totally changed the game of the accommodation sector. In fact, statistics suggest that that sector has grown by 11%, and it's pacing ahead of the traditional land-based tourism. So that's pretty significant. It means, therefore, that at a faster rate, more and more St. Lucians are benefiting from the accommodation subsector in tourism, and that is having a tremendous impact on the economic spin-offs to our jurisdiction.
Unfamiliar with what Airbnb is? As it stands, users put up rooms for availability on the Airbnb website, and interested persons can book a private residence as an accommodation for the duration of their stay to a destination. Fede says village tourism will have the capacity to provide structure and stability to the contemporary aspects of tourism on island.
What village tourism does, it gives the non-traditional accommodation sector a lot more structure, a lot more regulation, a lot more standards. It gives it marketing capacity. It gives it a licensing regime. It gives it a lot of technical assistance, and it gives it very, very strong guidance and allow for the small hotel sector as well to better utilize a lot of the programs available to the tourism sector. So an example would be applying for concessions. A lot of small properties, because of a lack of capacity, often don't apply for concessions. And when you don't, it becomes more expensive to build a hotel. It becomes more expensive in your operating cost. But by bringing about an organization that will allow in that segment of destination management. What it does, it then allows us to give more marketing support, give more administrative support, interior design, procurement mechanisms, and so on.
Fede says through these initiatives, a more holistic development of micro and small tourism operations occur for the advancement of the tourism product as a whole. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Solange Alfred.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. There's more after the break.